All right, here we go. So today we will be talking about working with neurodiverse children, helping them navigate the neurotypical world in which they live. They're trying to navigate it, it's difficult. What are the unwritten rules? How do we handle different situations? So today is going to be very practical with very specific ways that you can discuss handling these unstructured situations. We're going to define what they are, how you handle them, and teach a handful of conversation skills as well that will help support your child successfully through those times. All right, and so my name is Mike Fogel. I am an art therapist. I'm a licensed professional counselor. And over the last 20 some years, I've developed a specialty working with neurodiverse children, children with autism, ADHD, learning differences. In the year 2000, I developed the Art of Friendship Social Skills program, which we've been running, expanding to 4 locations in the Philadelphia area. And in 2013, we developed Camp Pegasus, which was a full-day, full-service day camp for neurodiverse children. And so that's some of the background of what I'm bringing to the table today. I'm excited to share everything that I've learned and developed over the years. I wrote a book based on some of the support techniques for neurodiverse children. If you are online, you can click on the QR code to the left. This slide will come up towards the end as well. Also, I have a free resource for you, and this is my YouTube channel. It's Mike Fogel's Art of Friendship, where there are a host of videos on all different aspects of supporting your child who has some social or emotional challenges. Now, today we're going to be talking about 7 of the SECC's, social emotional cognitive challenges, that a person who has ADHD or autism that they might bring to the neurotypical world, and some of the ways that they might misunderstand or not exactly know how to engage. And so please note, in any of the work that I do, I'm not trying to teach someone to make someone not be autistic or change who they are. We really love all of our clients, but really it's about, can we help you navigate the world with less pain, with less anxiety, and with greater success, so you can feel better about entering the world that you live in. And so we're going to talk about some of the difficulties and the solutions for initiating and sustaining conversation that's reciprocal, that bounces back and forth between parties, so it's not just one-sided conversation. We're going to talk about theory of mind, realizing that someone else has different thoughts and feelings than you do, therefore they probably have different conversation interests, topics of their interest that they like to pursue or talk about longer. It's not just about your topics. So how do we handle that? How can you handle that successfully? Another challenge for this population is intuitively reading the room and inferring what the underlying unwritten social rules are. The neurotypical world has this entire social code that no one talks about. Somehow people infer them, they figure them out. But people who are neurodivergent, across ADHD, learning differences, or autism, often can struggle. And it's like they're looking into this feeling like an outsider. So we're going to talk about some of the unwritten social expectations, mentioning reading the room. When a child walks into, or a teenager walks into, an unstructured social situation, we're going to define what that is. How do you read the room? Who's there? How do I behave? Where do I go? That can be confusing. It can generate a tremendous amount of anxiety. The person may have the instinct to avoid, to not go into those situations, or they might be anxious and intense in the situation. And sometimes it can cause them to be more impulsive if their neurology sort of leans towards that. And then it might cause them to act up or act in ways that doesn't fit in. So reading the room in unstructured situations, we're going to talk about a method to help with that. So we're going to make a step-by-step plan, including some problem-solving skills. Welcome. And we also have, we're going to talk about self-regulation and staying engaged versus the anxiety or avoidance or regression that the child or the young person might experience when in the unstructured situation. So that's our job together for this next time. And so first, before we talk about unstructured situations, I'd like to talk about conversation skills. I do teach this to elementary age students, but really this becomes most important and most critical during middle school and high school. This is when a lot of interaction shifts from play-based interactions to that more verbal engagement, hanging out skills, you know. And so we're going to talk about conversation like a tennis game, okay? Or pickleball, if you're a pickleball family. And so the talking tennis game is as follows. Here's one of our typical, very visual methods of teaching people of all ages. So we have the two people in a friendly game of tennis. So when there's a friendly game of tennis, what are the participants doing? What is the ball doing? Hopefully it's bouncing back and forth, and they're trying to extend the conversation. It's not a competitive game of tennis where you're trying to, score an ace. You don't want to destroy the ball so that they can't return it. That's competitive tennis. This is a friendly game of tennis. So the two or more participants are trying to keep the ball bouncing back and forth for as long as possible. That's the connection. And if you see these lines with the different points here, you'll see on the far left, there are two dots with an orange line between. So if there are two participants, there's one line of connection between them. If there are the three dots right immediately to the right of that, you have triangle of conversation, 1, 2, 3. And so now the conversation is bouncing three ways. But look what happens as soon as there are four or more people. If your child's in a group situation, not only are there the four connecting lines outside the square, but also the two corners are connecting. So there are 6 connections of 6 lines of communication in a 4-person interaction. What if there are 5 people? Look to the right, you can see it's now like a pentagram sort of an appearance, but I believe there are 10 connections, 10 possible lines of communication in a 5-person conversation. Wow. So that's a lot to track for anyone. And so this is what we think about when I'm teaching social skills in a group, that we want to keep the conversation bouncing. And if it's no matter how many people are there, most people are hoping to be included. They would like a chance to volley on that conversation and to contribute something to the conversation. All right, so that's the big picture of what conversation should look like. We're hoping it'll bounce back and forth. Now, if we are going to teach this, we have to talk about the structure of conversation, and that is language. So let's zoom out on this poster. So the column on the left are servers. So in a conversation, someone has to start the conversation. This is daunting for many of my clients and campers. What do I say? I don't know what to say in a conversation. And a lot of times people think that they have to have every conversation topic pre-scripted and mapped out beforehand. But that's also not conversation, because conversations kind of weave and flow. I have a poster on that, a slide on that in a little bit. But still, one thing that I teach, and I learned actually in a course on conversation, is that people love to talk about themselves. So if you, the individual, don't always know what to say, if you can remember the question words that you learned probably in kindergarten and 1st grade, then you can actually get other people talking, and then you look like a great conversationalist. Plus, people love it because they love to talk about themselves. They feel like you're curious about them, like you care about them. So these question words on the left, these are the servers. They start the conversation. And then I teach also my clients to think, okay, situationally, we want to think about context. If you see someone for the first time on a Monday or Tuesday, you all lived through a weekend. So a universal question you can always say on a Monday especially is, how was your weekend? So how, there's a how question. Or what? What did you do this weekend? Automatically, there's a conversation. And so if you think of anything that you and the other people around you must have lived through or experienced, that's an automatic. So any Monday or Tuesday, the first time you see someone in a week, you can say, how was your weekend? On a Thursday or Friday, with a weekend approach, you can say, what are you doing this weekend? And then the following week, if you remember what your friend said, let's say they said, I'm going to go see the Garfield movie. The next week, on a Monday, you can say, hey, did you see that Garfield movie that you told me about? How was it, right? How? So you can also ask interests. What do you like to play? What are you watching these days on YouTube? Are you watching any shows? What are you watching? So you can dig for interest with question words, certainly people's experiences. And then the bottom two are do you and did you. This is also conversation that can be, hey, did you see the game last night? Did you see a certain movie, blah, blah, blah. Do you like this? Do you like that? Do you ever go here? Do you ever go there? Or did you? And so these are ways to get to know other people's interests as well, if you want to dig for more connections with others. So this starters, and we practice this. One way that you can rehearse it is if at the dinner table. One person, if you have a family dinner, or if you're in a car is a great captive time where you can have practice conversation and try to bounce it back and forth. So you can ask your child, can you ask me a conversation question? Ask me about my life. And then you be quiet and see if they can think. And that process of thinking through and having them select a question word, what did you do today when I was at school? That's a great conversation question. Thanks for asking. I really feel like you care about me, right? And then we go to the middle column. If your child asks the question, you can model bouncing the conversation. So a conversation bouncer is and these are the two green are universal conversation bouncers, which are, how about you? So if someone says, hey, what did you do this weekend? You answer, hey, I saw the Garfield movie. How about you? Immediately, you've bounced it back to them. When I'm teaching this and when we're over teaching this, we'll often have a ball because we're bouncing the conversation back and forth, and we'll toss it. And if the person doesn't do a conversation bouncer, if they just say, I saw the Garfield movie, and they're holding the ball, then I tell them, what happened to our conversation? What's the ball doing? It's not bouncing. So can you bounce it back to me? They go, oh, sorry. How about you? How was your weekend? Or did you see the Garfield movie? Blah, blah. So how about you? Or what did you think? If you both saw it, oh, I saw the Garfield movie too. What did you think about it? Did you like it? That's another bouncer. So these are some just universal bouncers. If your child is a little bit anxious about conversation, doesn't always exactly know what to say, just have them lean on the structure of conversation. And we just practice these in kind of a rote way. In my office, one way that we structure conversation practice is by we open each social skills group with some kind of free art. It could be a drawing, or they make something with clay. Each person shares what they make. And when they hold it up, I have all the participants ask a conversation question. So they have to practice being curious. So week in and week out, we're repeating this process of, what inspired you to make that? What's that green thing in the corner? That kind of thing. So being curious about others, using question words and bouncing it. Now, a reality that all of my social learners should know is conversations don't go on forever. And so there's a way to change topics, sort of like it's changing games. You want to change the game of tennis. The ball bounced away, and so you want to start a new game. So you can say, oh, that reminds me. Like if you're talking about something and something that the group says or the conversation your partner says reminds you of a topic that you're interested in, and you can say, oh, well, that reminds me, and you can take the conversation somewhere else. Another really kind way to change the topic, if the thing in your mind is extremely different than what everyone's talking about, you can say, do you mind if I change the topic? Do you mind if I change the topic? Can I change it? That's a really permissive way to ask a child or the group, conversation partner or the group, because they can say, oh, no, let me finish what I was saying. Because it gives them a chance to actually own it and assert their need to finish the conversation. Can I change the topic? Or if what you're saying is a half beat that's really attached to the topic, it's a natural segue. You can go, oh, that reminds me, blah, blah, blah. And it's still in the vein of the conversation. So this alone, this one lesson, can breed, months and months of practice. And full disclosure, I was not a natural conversationalist. I used to get awkward and anxious. I didn't always know what to say. And it really helped me in my life when I learned this to teach my young clients who are neurodivergent. I was like, oh, I can really weaponize this for my purposes. And so I became a better conversationalist using the very things that I'm teaching. So they definitely work. This is the structure of conversation. Okay, so this is the beginning. But now we have to take it a little bit deeper. And let's talk about some of the unwritten expectations of conversations. So conversation, we talk about going with the flow, because you can't pre-script a conversation as much as we would like to. Leaving the house, I know I'm going to talk about this. I can prep for this. I can prep for that. But sometimes the conversation doesn't flow my way. I don't have a chance to say my thing unless I do a more formal changing of the topic. Unless I say, oh, there's something on my mind. You mind if I change the topic? If you do a more formal shift to something that's very different. So you can expect the conversation to flow and change. If you didn't get a chance to comment on the previous topic that you had something to say, you could say, oh, wait a minute, can I just say one more thing about that last topic? Right, so you can sort of hold it up and you can get your last piece in. But just knowing that the conversation is going to go, it's going to flow. Now, remember, we're talking about balancing a conversation back and forth. And in this poster, I'm also emphasizing two roles. The listener has a job to do, something written there on the bottom left, and the speaker has a job to do, all right? So the speaker, your job is to try to speak as clearly as possible in a medium indoor voice, so it's not too quiet, so that people can't hear. And it's not too loud, so you're bowling people over. So medium indoor voice is helpful for conversation. Don't forget to breathe. If you're talking really fast, you're not breathing, then it's hard for people to listen. So medium indoor voice, breathe, and explain what you mean. Because if you just say like a phrase, I was in a helicopter, right? Everyone's like, what? So they didn't say enough about it. So you're like, well, tell me more. Like, what? So see if you can explain what you mean. Try to give a few details. Like we call it the rule of three informally. Maybe you can say 2 or 3 things about your statement. I was in a helicopter. Well, why? My family took a helicopter tour of the Jersey Shore. Wow. And then people can ask their follow-up questions. So explain what you mean. Really try to let people know. So that's the job of the speaker, but unwritten rule of conversation, not every speaker says everything perfectly. In fact, I want my clients and campers to know that conversation is a messy affair. It's quite imperfect. There are 10 words to say the same meaning, but each word means something slightly different. And someone might say a word that fits their understanding of the situation, but it might not naturally communicate to you. You might not understand the word choice that they had. That's normal. That's expected. So don't get angry if you don't understand what someone means. They're going to do their best. Speaker, try your best to really communicate and explain what you mean. If you're the listener, ask a follow-up question. If you're not sure what they mean, you can say, what do you mean? And I'll have my clients will say, repeat after me, everyone. What do you mean? I'll say, what do you mean? So now we'll have this sort of as a script, as a backup. In case you don't know, don't panic. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean the speaker is bad. It just means communication is sloppy and you need some more information. So, and then adjust to understand. Sometimes the listener has to work to understand the other person. Wait, I still don't get it. Can you say it in a different way? So we just talk about that. And that helps the ball to continue to bounce back and forth. A lot of people that I work with can get anxious or angry if a conversation breaks down. Certainly if there's awkward silence, it's called awkward silence for a reason. Most people are not comfortable with it. In therapy graduate school, we did exercises sitting and staring at each other to learn how to tolerate silence in a conversation. But, and it's actually a good exercise to do. Can you sit with someone else and not fill up the air with tons of verbiage? So there might be an awkward silence in conversation. That's a part of going with the flow. Topics flow and change, and you might end up in a really great conversation. Your endpoint might not be where you started. And that's really hard for my neurodivergent clients because of the unpredictability of it, right? The lack of certainty. So practicing that and getting comfortable with the uncertainty is a life task, actually. And that's why I labeled this talk really being sort of specific to teenagers. Again, you can start to teach this to younger kids, certainly in elementary school, but it becomes more and more salient, and they can, with more intentionality, practice the skills as they get older. Next, we need to define what a topic is and create some expectations around topic management, let's call it that. Okay, and so if you look at the human figure on the left, that person, we're going to compare a human brain to an iPad or a smartphone or a tablet, right? So it has all these icons in it, and each of those little icons contains a file, whether it's an app, whether it's photos, right? So that you tap, when you tap on the app image, the icon on your phone, right? The screen fills with all the content, everything that's programmed in that app, everything it knows. Or if it's photos or other documents, everything that you saved, right? Uploaded, downloaded. So our brains are the same way. So a topic essentially is a file in your mind you've clicked on. It fills up your mental desktop. It's in the front of your mind. And so and now you can talk about or think about whatever's in that file. So if I want to talk about international flags, right? I would have to click on that file, and then I can picture, all the images in my mind of the different flags, what their meaning is, and so on. So that's me. That's in my desktop. Now, if there's a conversation, essentially what happens is multiple people, if you look at the bottom, multiple people have to click on the same file, but different people have different contents in their files. And that's actually the fun of a conversation. One person might know more about a certain thing, one person might know less, so you can exchange information and learn more. Also, if we're talking about experiences, people have different feelings in their files. I liked it. I hated it. I thought that was great. It was hilarious. That was offensive. You can talk about that. So in a conversation, every person is clicking on the same file, the same topic. And in these files, there's always a little tab for a name, right? You title it. In any conversation, what you want to do is mentally title the conversation. Okay, someone brought up the Avengers. We're talking about Marvel movies, right? Everyone mentally click on that. So now we can all unpack. I love this Avengers movie. I didn't like the Hulk, but I liked, Captain America movie, blah, blah, blah. So here in this group, everyone clicked on Lego, and they all got to talk about different aspects of their love for Lego. So they can share that. That's connection. Your brains are connecting, and if you're talking about feelings, your hearts are connecting when everyone clicks on the same topic. Couple of rules of thumb. Don't jump topics too many times. If one person says Marvel movies and the other person says, well, I like pie, and the other person says I like to ride bikes, they're like, what? Your brains get crossed up, and then like a Mac computer, then you get the pinwheel of doom spinning because your computer is going to freeze. You're going to get confused. And it's not satisfying to your conversation mates if you're jumping topics too fast. So don't click on too many topics at once. With our previous slide where we talked about, can I change the topic, or that reminds me, let a topic breathe. So name it in your mind. Oh, we're talking about Marvel movies. All right, let's let everyone have at least one volley on that, and maybe more if everyone's really into it. Yeah, I remember this scene, that was so awesome. I love when this person beat down this person. That was so funny when this happened. Let a conversation breathe, even if you have a topic in your mind, and then after it's gone around a few times, you can say, hey, mind if I change the topic? The group can can say, no, let's talk about this longer. Or perhaps they'll say, sure, right? And then you can introduce your topic. So if you jump topics too fast, people get confused. So let it breathe if you can, okay? And as in the previous slide, you might talk on one topic for 3 minutes, the next topic for 7 minutes, the next topic for 1 minute. One topic can go for a half hour if everyone's riffing on it, having fun, joking around, and so on. All right, so talking topics. Now we know what a topic is. That alone will help your child start to manage what they talk about more. It's also important to talk about theory of mind in topics. What are people interested in? This is another way that I teach it. You can just draw or write on paper if you're really teaching it formally, if you're a professional or an educator, just draw a bunch of folders and you can track what your group is talking about. And so this group, on the left, they were talking about pets. They all clicked on the same topic. And on the right one, they all talked about different things. And we talked about how that was very confusing because we didn't really talk about, not everyone clicked on the same topic. It wasn't all animals. Now, a little more on topics. Some topics are really appropriate. Some are inappropriate. Some are better and worse. Let's establish understanding of that. So we talk about staying on target. So it's kind of like a bullseye. We define what a target is. If in a hurry or in a shooting range, there's the bullseye is where you're aiming, right? Now, as you go out each concentric circle, you can still get points, right? So it's 10 points in the middle. Maybe it's 5 points in the purple range, and then in the red range, it's 3 points, but you're still getting points. If you miss the target entirely, it's 0 points. And so we talk about on-target topics and off-target topics. Is a sort of a way to language it in a sort of black and white way. And so this was a topic I used with a teen group that would often love to make inappropriate jokes in all different directions. I'll let you imagine based on some of the things that we put in the off-limits things. But let's talk about what's off-topic and name that for your child. Gory violence, gross out. So that's like, boogies, pee and poop. Or you can see on the right, bodily juices, bodily fluids. Middle schoolers, teenagers love to talk about this. And then we can talk about public versus private. There's mixed company. If you're in a whole class, or if you're at church, for instance, or if you're in at the library, if you're not talking about any of these things at all. If you're at a sleepover and it's only your crew and you all have the same sense of humor, maybe you're talking about, bodily fluids, right? Jokes about race, religion, those private parts, off limits, especially in mixed company, sort of, more public group areas. So control your mouth. Learn to think about what's coming out of your mouth, because this is an area where you can really get yourself in trouble, either from authority figures, or you can lose friends and you can offend people. So we talk about that. But what is on target? So we have on the outside ring, less of a bullseye, but still good, is small talk. Hey, isn't the weather beautiful today? So weather, your likes and dislikes, current events, news, sports. Oh my gosh, the Phillies are so hot. Music. Those are great things to talk about. And they're not super deep, but they're definitely ways to join and connect. You can find things in common, definitely on target. The next level in are your interests, your personal activities, books you've read. And you can talk more about you're getting closer to the heart, closer to each other and connecting. You can talk about your weekend events, right? What did you do last weekend? You're getting a little more personal, not deeply personal, right? Not their most vulnerable places, but now you're getting into their life as opposed to sports, current events, right? Humor, you can joke around. And so that's that purple second level in. And then with your closest people, your closest friends, you might talk about bullseye things. Well, how do you feel about that? What was hard for you? Things you're stressed about. So that's actually a bullseye in terms of human connection. You can really deepen a friendship there, but you don't go to the bullseye with everyone. And yet, paradoxically, it's the most on target, it's the bullseye, but you have to work your way in as well. And I have a slide about that, sequencing friendships as well. All right, so I'll do a lot of work with my teen groups on target, off target. We'll have this poster up as a permanent reminder, and then in therapy we'll actually create, positive reinforcement swings and even small consequences. You might need a break. These sort of things to help really shape kids' decision making and have them listen just a little bit harder to what's coming out of their mouths. I have worked with a lot of impulsive mouths, and so they're learning their limits. Okay. All right. That's the intro to conversation skills, just the basics. And there's a lot of practice and subtlety that follows, but that's how we sort of introduce it. So now, if your child's gone through some of this conversation, if you're talking about these kind of things at home, conversation starters, bouncers, right? Go with the flow. Try to talk about different topics as they flow. This is what a topic is. Now, your child leaves the safety and security of your home, and they're in certain unstructured times. And we define this for our clients, and I'll define it for you as well. And so what is a structured time? Structure is when there are really clear rules and expectations. And usually there's adult supervision as well. And that adult supervision somehow causes the individual, the child, to muster up a little more self-control to inhibit themselves. They know they could get in trouble. They know that there are watching eyes. And so they pull themselves together. Also in structured, there's a schedule, there are expectations. So like a classroom, right? There's a beginning, middle, and an end of a class. First, the teacher gives instruction, perhaps, and then there's a work period at your desk. So kids know what to expect there, and many of my clients actually feel good and safe in that structure. So then the unstructured part of the day, therefore, is sort of the opposite of that. There's less clear rules. The rules aren't posted, they're not in their face. And often there's less direct adult supervision. So think of in the hallways if they're transitioning classes, lunch, recess. Recess is the wild, wild west. Anything can happen. Kids might be 30 to 100 feet or more away from the watchful eye of the, sporadic recess monitors who are out there supervising. And so that there's a gap in structure. And that's why we have this little hole, right? This little valley there in my image. So the child's walking along their structure of their day, and then whoop, there's this gap. It's a gap time. So we call unstructured times gap time. And not only is it a physical gap where there's a risk that you could fall in if you don't know what to do, but also G.A.P stands for get attention positively. Okay, you want to get positive attention because you certainly could get negative attention during that time. We can define that, but you want to get positive attention. And then when that unstructured time is over, the rules and supervision is back and you know what to expect. So essentially, there's a follow-up slide. You want to build a bridge across the gap. What's your bridge? What's your support? Your structure is the conversation skills and play skills that you're learning and practicing. And so, as I mentioned in the opening of my talk, a lot of people that I work with, are stressed by unstructured times. There's anxiety. It can create the urge to either withdraw or avoid, or if they're engaged, they can get more bouncy and more silly and impulsive. And so there is a risk. So you want to build a strong bridge across that time. Okay. And so knowing that this unstructured time, this gap time, is a social opportunity. Let's make that your child's North Star. This is a chance for me to connect. This is a chance for me to make friends, continue to improve or to build my reputation and preserve my reputation if we're talking about the reputation project. Okay, so unstructured times are a gap time. It's an opportunity. It doesn't have to be seen as a scary, scary time, although I understand why it is. And so let's get into it. So you're going to use the conversation skills that we've built. And now here's a strategy to break down these wide open physical and social spaces. And so I like to compare it to like a military marine operation. So on the left of this image, you can see the Marines are dropping out of the sky, out of their helicopters, and then boom, and they land in an environment. Well, what does the Marine do? First, they take out their binoculars, right, and they scan the environment. What's the landscape? Well, in a unstructured social situation during G.A.P time, what's your child's task? You're going to scan the situation, scan the space for who's there, okay, and what's there. What is there to do? So the who's there is, okay, who do I like? Okay, well, I don't like that. I don't like that group. That group's been mean to me. Oh, there's kids who are nice to me. And here's someone who's in my class, so I like him, right? So you're scanning the space first. Who's there? Do I like them? Do I not like them? Are they safe, unsafe? Don't unwittingly go towards a person or a table or a group that often are mean to you. That makes no sense. Instead, choose the fun kids, the safe kids, the nice kids. All right. Next, you want to think about what is there to do. So in this scene, this is like there's a table over there with one kid. Those kids are playing cards. It's an indoor recess. They're playing cards on the far right. There's two red kids. Those three kids, the purple kids, are over there talking. Do I like to talk? Do I like to play cards? So what is there to do? If this is, we have some different sized tables. Imagine this is like that coffee hour after religious services, or perhaps there's this is a dance if it's your adolescent. Okay, what is there to do? Oh, okay, there's the drinks over there. There's the food table over there. There's a photography station there, and here's my friends. Okay, so you can choose. Do I want to organize myself by who's there? No matter what they're doing, I'm going to choose the kids who I want to be with, and I'll do whatever they're doing. Or do I want to choose the activity? I really want to do that photo booth over there. I'm going to go do the activity. So who's there and what's there to do? This is just some of the basic ways that you can break down a social situation. And I think this is what, again, the neurotypical mind tends to do somewhat automatically and inferentially. And but the clients that I work with come back and they report they absolutely can do this. And they're really proud of, oh my God, for the first time after Sunday school, I was able to engage in that hangout time. Now I know what to do. So they were really thrilled to learn just this simple strategy to organize themselves in space and time. All right, next, if we're talking about this, we also have to talk about friendship management. And this also relates to conversation. What do you talk about with acquaintances versus people you've known longer and longer? And a lot of the people that I work with of all ages think as soon as they meet someone, if that person either smiles at them or if they have one thing in common, we're best friends. We're instantly friends, and they don't know the person's style, their total interest, that thing. It takes time to make friends, and that's a reality that most of my clients and campers don't know. So again, for older kids, this has a lot of language on it, so I wouldn't show this to a preschool group. This is a concept, again, much for older elementary, middle school, high school. But we talk about, I compare friendship to a video game. A lot of video games have levels. You play, you either play or work or battle at a certain level, and you defeat whatever, and you move up to the next level, right? And you get more power-ups, you get more cool things at the next level. So we're talking about friendship like a video game. So level 1 is an acquaintance you've just met. So we define when you've met someone, that's called an acquaintance. And so there's a task. In each of these, as I'm describing it, there's a certain social task that has to happen. That's on the left. And then there's the do. There's what do you talk about? What can you do with a person at this level of friendship? Excuse me. So level 1, you've just met. So your task is identify who's this person. You're exchanging names, maybe how old you are. If it's appropriate, if you're already in the same school, you know what school you go to. If you're meeting on a playground, I go to Marion Elementary. I go to Marion Elementary. What grade are you in? What grade are you in? So you can find out, identify who's there, and you're figuring out as everyone does, you're quickly assessing, is this person basically safe? Is this person nice? Not nice. And that's not a super nuanced thing, but that's sort of your snap judgment. And everyone does this. We're all picking up the vibes off of people. For teens, if someone really has terrible BO, they're not taking good care of their hygiene, they're not using deodorant, a snap thing could be, on a biological level, if we smell something that's very repulsive, that revulsion feeling is very core human experience. All animals do it because it goes back to, usually if something in nature smells horrible, bless you, usually it was rotting or it was infected. And so there's that's why we have this revulsion reaction to smells and things. So if someone really smells bad, for instance, that might be a turnoff. And you might think, this person may not be safe. That's one reaction. How are they acting? Are they really wild? If they're too wild, it might scare you. That person might not feel safe. So who are they? And basically, are they nice? Are they safe? That's the first thing. And so what can you ask about? You can ask their name, their age, perhaps, grade. Do you live near here? If you meet at a playground, if you're on the same sports team, because if you like each other, it might turn into something. So identify and safety. Acquaintances are also cashiers or people that we meet one time. The bus driver. You're not going to be friends with them necessarily, but can you be kind? Can you give them a nice greeting? So we just talk about these kind of things. All right. But let's say you are going to continue to be around this acquaintance at school or at an activity, baseball, theater, whatever. And so now, instantly, just by being in the same activity, you are activity mates. And that's everyone at the activity. You're not friends yet. You haven't pulled people out to be friends. This is the entire population of that activity, your activity mates. Okay, so of all the kids here, of all these mates, who seems to be nicer? Who do I start to gravitate towards? That's your task. You're trying to figure out, okay, these guys seem wilder. These guys, they always make inappropriate jokes. I'm not so comfortable with them. So you're sort of assessing of the whole population, who would you rather sit with, basically? And what do I have in common with these kids? So shortly after being acquaintances, you're assessing who's nice, who's safe. Now you're like, what do I have in common with these people? With the mates, sometimes kids are like, well, I don't like them, so I'm just going to be mean to them. And so one teaching point on this is, even if they're mates, you're not going to be friends with every single person in your cohort at camp, at school, or whatever, but you're going to be kind and nice to everyone, right? You're going to be decent. You're going to be civil to everyone. So that's one lesson out of this. But then as your task is, you start to ask the kids who you start to deem nicer, more comfortable, what did you like to do? What's fun for you? You might start to ask, what did you do last weekend? Oh, I saw that movie too. And the more you start to ask those questions about interests, now you're getting ready to move to the third level. So first level, identification and safety, greetings. Second level, you splash down, you're in the total community, and you're assessing, hey, who's nicer here, right? What do we have in common? Level 3, and that can take a while. Again, not putting an actual number of minutes or days or weeks on it, but that takes a while, whatever that is. And then you get to level 3. Level 3 are your activity friends. So whatever the activity, these are the kids that you say, hey, save me a seat, right? And in fact, that's a social lesson to tell kids, because they might, if they're not proactive with this language of save me a seat, hey, can I sit near you? Then you all might show up and the other person didn't know that you wanted to sit next to them. Other kids plug in and you're like, oh man, I never get to sit next to them. So, hey, save me a seat. That's a really common kid social thing to do. I recommend it. I teach it. And so these of all the mates, these are the kids that you want to sit with. Maybe you have one activity friend. That's your anchor. That's good. I don't judge it if someone has one. If someone has one, that's great for them. If they have 2 or more, that's really helpful, because what if activity friend number 1's absent? Then they're kind of floating. So it's good to have one for sure. That's your emotional anchor. but it's better if you can have a second or third. You can have, perhaps it turns into a friend group, or if you have a few friends. So your task, enjoy them. You're going to spend time with them. Hey, I'll meet you at the jungle gym at recess. I'll meet you by the fence, whatever. Right, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure that you're setting it up. You're going to play together if it's a play situation. You're going to hang out and talk if it's more of an older kid situation. So enjoy. And what do you talk about? Now here, at the activity friend level, you're often talking about your weekend activities, what's coming up, what's coming next, your interests. You start to plan free time. Hey, what do you want to do at recess today? What do you want to do during break time? You're going to meet up here. So you're planning what you're going to do together. And then you also can talk about the activity itself. If you're on the baseball team, you're like, oh man, that umpire, that was a terrible call. Right? So you can talk about this teacher. She doesn't like me, So you can talk about the activity itself, what you like, what you don't like, what you're experiencing, and so on. So you're talking about the activity as well as your events and activities outside. Then you win the friendship video game if you can get to level 4. Level 4 friends are outside friends. You've now converted this friend to a friend not just only limited to like the hours of school or camp or baseball, right? Or the theater group or whatever you're in. But now you're now planning get-togethers outside. Incredible things happen if you can go convert an activity friend to a home friend or an outside friend. So your task is to figure out, of the kids that you spend the most time with who you like at school, is there one at a time, or one or more, that you really would love to spend even more time with? Now you know what interests they have. You know you like the same video games. You know you like the same YouTubes or games. So, hey, do you want to get together to play Roblox, Minecraft, whatever it is, Call of Duty? So you want to get together to shoot hoops? Whatever it is, you know your interests. Try to get them outside the group, outside the activity. That's where you make memories. You make a lot of personal jokes, inside jokes develop, outside of the activity. And then even when that activity ends, whether if school ends in June, you still have that friend in July, August, and September, June, July, and August, right? If a sports activity ends or a theater group, if you do the play, everyone disbands and you never see anyone again. So, but if you figured out there's one kid who you really get along with, invite them to be an outside friend. Hey, and maybe, hey, do you want to go for ice cream after play practice? After soccer. So if you can peel that one person away, start to make friends, and you start to see each other, relationships deepen, and so that's your task, is to pull those kids out for play dates, outings, get-togethers. What can you talk about with an outside friend? Everything. Now you're deeper, you're away from the group. You can talk about all of the above things from activity friends, but now you can also talk about things in common, what you're doing at your activity. You can also talk about your hopes and dreams, your feelings, your concerns. And that's when you really have those deeper connections that could lead to best friend situations. But if you notice, this is 4 levels or more. And I would say like best friends would be level 5. But I think for a lot of the kids that I work with, just developing these outside friendships is huge. Because sometimes they do make friends at their brief after-school activity, and then it remains at the activity, and then they don't have people to get together with on the weekends. So that's always my advice. Try to extend the friendship to home or outside. There's a hand and a question from our inside attendees. Yes?
And you may be getting to this, but do you talk to your clients and campers about when they are finding people that they like to talk with and starting to gang up on, not like full-blown bullying, but like, oh yeah, I don't like that person either, and that kind of stuff? It's like, okay, it's good that they've made this connection, but you mentioned reputation earlier, and how does that fit
Yes.
in?
So the question is, what if, friendships, you have things in common, and you start to agree that maybe you don't like the way other kids behave or their personalities, and you start to talk about them. And so sometimes for people, this can happen to anyone. Some people create groups of identity groups by saying also like who we're not, right? We are friends and they're not good enough for us, essentially. And that sort of strengthens their friendship artificially. But I mean, and it can breed identities. So that's one function of it. But the other function is it can turn mean, it can turn exclusionary. And so you're allowed to be friends with whoever you want to be with. And you don't have to like every activity mate, right? You don't have to be friends with, you don't have to get together with them. But maintaining kindness, don't talk about them. Or if you have an activity mate and you're away from everyone and you both are saying like, that friend was so annoying, if you're commiserating together, that's kind of okay. That's what friends do. We adults talk about other people all the time if they bother us. But it's just a matter of, you're not going to gang up on people and be mean to others ever, right? Always maintain that kindness. We establish kindness at, certainly at the being acquaintance and definitely at the mate level, right? You're kind to everyone. We already established that. You're kind and civil to everyone, even if you don't like them. You know what I mean? And so that's just ongoing conversation with kids. And you can say, I have had conversations that have gone, you don't have to be mean to person number 3 just to be for the two or three of you to be friends. You know what I mean? You can enjoy yourself without getting up on someone else.
So I guess the takeaway is like, it's okay if you kind of commiserate a little bit, but just keep it to yourselves and not, as long as you're not acting on or being overtly mean to.
Right. That's a private conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sort of public versus private.
Yeah.
We're talking about this. Now, sometimes, certainly no elementary students up through, and some middle school students, someone feels the need to run and tell the person they're talking about the truth, right? She said she doesn't like you. That is so destructive. There's no need for that. That really needs to be a private conversation. You're allowed to have your opinions about people. Just keep it kind, keep it nice, keep it in your group. They don't need to know.
Right.
There's
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt. In the same topic, but kind of on the reverse of that, any advice if our child is in that activity friend group, but he is kind of the victim of a dominant personality, borderline bullying personality, but it's within that group that he sits with every day?
That's tricky. And is the rest of the group good for your child in this hypothetical?
They are good, but they don't really back him up when he's the one that's kind of singled out by the bully, and the rest of them kind of sit there quietly while this happens, which kind of plays into that one person having the dominant personality.
Yes. So I would say there's a few sort of social responses that I have. One is actually to try to, peel off some of the other sort of the bystanders, to have make them outside friends and strengthen those friendships. And then, so those bonds are stronger. And then you can, at some point, you can say to those kids, hey, like, it really hurts my feelings when, alpha child is mean to me. Can you stick up for me? So you can actually ask for help, but it helps if you know your child has a good connection to some of the bystander kids, maybe already either that child or you can go to their parents, depending on how old your child is, and say, hey, could your child sort of like back up my child? That's perfectly okay too. You want to sort of muster some support from like-minded, caring people. Now, ultimately, if it really is destructive to your son, another question is this group good for you? And this is going to lead me to the next slide, actually. Oh, 2 slides. I'll do this slide first. I'll come back to the next one. I talk about this for all kids. So climbing friendship mountains. This is still friendship management. And in the road of your life, right, you have all these stops, and you can see in this, you start at the bottom of the mountain, and by the end of your life, hopefully, you reach the top of the mountain with a number of close comrades, right? People that you can spend time with, who give your life meaning, right? So you have friends. And one lesson is for my campers and clients, is that friends, kids are there at all these different places you go, whether it's, scouts, sports, drama, school, camp, whatever. That's where the kids are. And if you have a favorite kid who you turn into an outside friend, they continue walking with you on your path towards friendship greatness, on Friendship Mountain, right to the top. Now, if there is someone who is mean, if they're routinely mean to you, one question is, do you have to be around that child? Is this friendship good for you? And there's another slide coming up as well where I help kids start to think about, what is a frenemy? So on the next slide, we're going to talk about that. But in very concrete terms, I suggest to kids, if there are kids who are routinely mean to you, if they're bringing you down to make your life worse, and if a group is unkind to you, is that good for you? Now, it could be a scary move to change friend groups, but I start to ask kids in question form. I want the child to start to assess. I want them to do the thinking. Is this child or group good for you? If they keep hurting your feelings, do you deserve them? I think you don't deserve to have people be mean to you. If you can be assertive, if you can stick up for yourself, then absolutely you can do that. There's a video in my YouTube channel on Mike Fogel's Art of Friendship, which is about bullying. There's a whole 1-hour video on anti-bullying strategies. So if that might be of something for you to watch, because you can also coach your child with some of those strategies. But then ultimately, if your child continues to be brought down, if it's harming their self-esteem, if they're beginning to have school anxiety and school avoidance, it might be time to think about changing friend groups. Again, I try to do that in question form, because if I'm the grown-up saying, these friends are no good for you, you have to change, they're going to dig their heels in. No, no, no. But if they are doing the assessment, and over time, if you repeatedly, every so often you re-ask that question, the third or fourth time you ask it, they might be, they're not good. And so having the conversation multiple times, the child might come to the conclusion themselves, and then they're more ready to make a change, if that's appropriate. But my first step is, let's see if your child can be assertive and try to get the meaner kid to stop, if they're actually friends. Second step, let me marshal the resources of the bystanders and see if I can befriend them, strengthen those friendships, and maybe get them to stick up. And then the third step, after trying a bunch of things, would be potentially changing friend groups. You know what I mean? Let me see, do I want to do this next? All right. So on the heels of, was that a fair answer? Was that helpful?
That was great. Thank you.
Okay, good. Glad to help. So we talked about the friendship video game, levels of friendship. These are the types of things you talk about and focus on. And then lastly, to deepen friendships, and this is a very adolescent concept. This is a little harder for young kids. Conversation topics, going deeper versus going broader. So we made this graph, this number line. And on the top blue line, that horizontal line, that's sort of number of possible topics. And you can see there's comics, sports, food, TV shows, and on and on and on, right? So we could fill that entire number line with 1 million different topics. If you jump topics to each of those shallowly without going deeper, you're like, do you like sports? Yes. Do you like comics? Yes. What did you do last weekend? Saw the Garfield movie, And so you're skimming across the top and no one gets deeper. But if you really want to deepen a friendship, as you go from activity friend to home friend, you want to have more volleys on the same topic. Let's see how long we can extend a conversation deeper. And it could just be like, can we get a half-hour conversation about Star Wars? But also, a way to take it deeper is if you start to ask perspective questions. How do you feel about that? What do you think about that? Did you like that? Did you not like that? What was that like for you? Any of those kind of questions can take conversations deeper. And by deeper, I mean going into emotion. Emotion is when people really have that human connection. And again, kids can really connect at the play level for the most part. If they're happy playing, that's their connection. By the time they get to that sort of proto-adult, pre-adult kind of hanging out interactions, the human connection is emotion. Yeah, we feel the same about that. We struggle with the same things. We're similar. That's connection to an adolescent. So I just brought this up to show you, and you can talk about that. And let's see how long we can talk about one subject. Can we volley for a long time? And can you, my child, ask me about how I feel about my day, my experience, that kind of thing. So you can deepen conversation. So I did go out of order. We're coming to the end. So here's a conversation. And again, this is probably appropriate for older elementary, 4th, 5th grade at minimum, I would say, and then on up. But talking about, we're going to define true friends. What's a frenemy? And then positive and negative leaders and followers. So, and this could be very conversational. This could be a discussion, but what do you say is a true friend? And ultimately, as we talk about that in that top left quadrant, the things that they come up with are loyal. They're usually nice. A true friend is usually nice to them almost all the time, right? We have fun together. We have things in common. So these are the most common things, and it's fairly expected. But it takes time to develop a true friend. But I say that in contrast to the next one, frenemies. Okay, what's a frenemy? And this is a term that's floating around. Oh, I have this frenemy. Half the time they're mean to me, half the time they're nice. Well, I'm here to tell you and your child, a frenemy is not a friend because the word enemy is in the word. That is not a true friend. If someone's mean to you sometimes or half the time, that's not a friend. Why would you willingly go to someone who half the time or a quarter of the time is going to be mean to you? Sometimes they make you feel bad. How do you deserve to be treated by friends? How would you like to be treated by friends? Loyal, usually nice, have fun together. Right? That's a true friend. So perhaps this person you've been keeping as a frenemy, your oil and water, maybe that's a person to kick off a friendship mountain. There's no need to keep that person there. They bring you down, right? Let's go on. We can talk about positive leaders and negative leaders if you're in a group. And what's a positive leader? Someone who sort of is upbeat, they're encouraging, they make you feel good. They also lead you all to make good decisions. Negative leaders are those kids that will take you down negative paths. Hey, let's go be mean to someone else. Let's go do this prank on someone. Hey, why don't you go and tell them that we think that they're a loser? Any of these kind of things. Hey, do you want to try this cigarette? Whatever it is, this vaping. So that's a negative leader. So you have to decide which one are you going to be. And the kids that I work with really earnestly want to be positive leaders. They don't always stop to think about it until we do this explicit conversation. But how do you want to be seen? What's your reputation? So they think of better things to do versus the negative leaders. So that's all well and good, but not every person is a natural leader, and that's okay. But what kind of a follower are you? Right? You decide. If there's a negative leader in your group, are you going to follow them down that path? Yeah, I'm going to try vaping because they make it seem cool, right? Even though I know it's not healthy for me. Are they going to do something to embarrass someone or hurt someone, right? So you decide. Take your road to success, the road to happiness is a concept in our social skills program. Say no to bad ideas. And if one person's trying to get a group to do something, you can be a positive leader and say, hey guys, no, let's not do that. Come on, let's go over here. And you might peel off a couple of kids who want to be your positive followers. You become a positive leader, you can pull people up. So again, friendship management, you don't have to go along with the group if there's a negative follower. At minimum, you can take yourself away from a group that's making a bad decision and still keep them as friends, or you can peel people off. So friendship management. Who is on Friendship Mountain with you and who is off Friendship Mountain, right? And so summing it up, first, it's really important for kids, depending on their age, to be learning and practicing their play skills if they're at a play age, or conversation skills if they're at a more conversational developmental level and their peers are, right? Be curious, bounce a conversation, use the question words, share files on appropriate topics and hang with them, right? Think about what level you are in friendship. Let's see, can you move an activity mate? Who do you like? Okay, I want to sit with you. And then if you spend more time with them, you start to like them at school, peel them off, see if they can become a home friend or an activity friend. Then we talked about unstructured time, right? Gap time, get attention positively, build that bridge using the skills that you're practicing, conversation and play skills. Those are the things that are going to keep you from falling and crashing down that deadly unstructured time gap. Then we talked about friendship management in terms of levels of friendship, right? And we talked about making sure that you're selecting friends who are good to you and are good influences and not bad influences, right? A reminder, yes, here is the scan code, the QR code, if you want to go check out the YouTube channel that has that host of resources that are all free for you. And then also, if you're online, you can purchase my guidebook. That is the QR code on the left. That takes you to my author page. And this is a home program about how you can create the ideal support structure for a neurodiverse person, encouraging them to repeat and repeat their social skills until they become positive habits. And that is our presentation for today. I will stop the recording now, but I can continue to take some questions if anyone wants to discuss a little longer. Allow me just to stop the video now. And